Hello, everyone. Welcome to Yo Soy Neighborhoods Fresno. And hopefully soon we'll be out there working again and running down the street in our cars like crazy people. No, hopefully not. We've learned our lesson now. I hope that we need each other, not only each other, but we need our animals too. I love it that they're out there taking over the cities and forests and doing what they should be doing. And now all of a sudden those leatherback turtles, they're hatching eggs all over Thailand. So they were endangered species. So yay. So, and we have nice clean air just to breathe in here in Fresno. So hopefully we can keep this going for a while. Well, today, Mary Jo, and your last name, tell me your last name again.
Yeah, it's Martha Patterson, but I get an answer. I get called Martha. I'm Martha Jo Patterson, and I get called Mary Jo all the time because, you know, that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is the most popular of all the saints. So, you know, I joke that I am the bad sister in the Bible. I was the one who's, you know, was working and sitting at Jesus' feet. So.
I apologize. I read it 5 times, more than 5 times, but anyway.
You can tell it happens a lot, so I just, you know, joke and say, no, I'm the other sister in the Bible.
Can you share with everyone what your address, your location of your office, but let them know that you do Zoom interviews and things? Go ahead and share with the office.
So my physical office is up here in Oakhurst on Road 426. So I'm up here in Oakhurst, but I actually maybe when we open things up, having a cubicle down in Fresno just so I can meet with people in a formal office. But I do house calls. I do facility calls, hospitals, assisted livings, nursing homes, of course, when they allow in visitors, which they're not right now. I do a lot of meetings by Zoom or phone. Some of my older clients aren't, you know, capable of doing the Zoom or the phone. So, you know, I'm available to people wherever and, you know, endeavor to meet people. So, you know, even though my physical office is up here, you know, I could meet with people and, you know, however is comfortable for them.
Your phone number.
Okay, my phone number is 559-473-1233. And you can call me there. And my website is elderlawmom.com. So that's elder, like ELDER, law, LAW, mom, MOM. I'm the law mom lady. So it's easy to remember, and I do that because that way people didn't have to remember which M my name starts with, which M name I am, because there's lots of M names and we all get confused. So it's elderlawmom.com, and you know, so that's the easiest place to find me. So
the reason we have Martha Jo on here today is very important for us to start thinking about this. I realize in our society, death and that kind of thing hasn't been talked about a lot. You know, having disabled children or mental disabilities that we're finding we're needing more and more people that have been on drugs or perhaps had a head injury. We need to start thinking about doing this in advance. And Martha Jo is an expert in these trusts and wills. I don't know. What would you like? Which one would you like to give a debrief about first?
Well, you know, right now with, you know, people having to be at home and going on things, you know, people are saying, they're saying, well, we can do our will, you know, Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, you know, all sorts of people have their online wills, and they're fine if you have a family that looks like Ozzie and Harriet. You know, everybody's been married for 70 years. All your kids are, you know, bright and good and, you know, honest, and nobody fights, which is great, but that only seems to happen on TV, and it kind of happened way back in the 50s. So people who don't have that family probably can't get it done, you know, on these simple documents. And if, you know, wills basically go through probate, and probate court gets expensive. So for most families, probate court's going to be more expensive than any trust I would do. Now, if you talked about, you mentioned those special needs, children, adult children, with addictions, you may want a special trust. There are inheritance protection trusts for people who have, I call them special challenges. That could be an addiction. That could be just a person who can't handle money to save their life. It could be, some undiagnosed thing. You may want to protect their inheritance for them. If you have somebody who has special needs and they're getting public benefits, you need a special trust for that person so that they don't lose their benefits. And we can keep their benefits and have money secured for them. It has to be managed by somebody, either a professional trustee or somebody who is really, really good with money and very honest in the family to manage that money. But you can set aside money to supplement what the state doesn't provide and keep them those state benefits. And that's really important for people to do that and to realize that, doing your estate planning, it's important. You might think, well, I don't have any money. You might think I don't even have $150,000 because you're looking at your bank account balance.
Right.
But if you have a house, it's going to be worth more than $150,000. The probate court looks at the gross value of your house. They don't care about your mortgage. They care about what it's worth. So, I tell people the importance is, my youngest client ever came to me. Well, he had some help of his aunt. He came to me right after his 13th birthday. His parents had both predeceased him, all of them killed in an accident, his parents and little brother. They had done a do-it-yourself will. Her best friend was his guardian. He was miserable. They had never talked about it because he had never signed the will. She had never, she had done it all, and it was a disaster because nobody talked about it. They didn't have any money before they died, but when they died, they had money from their auto insurance, money from his life insurance. All of a sudden, there was money.
Right.
And people don't think, well, gee, before I'm dead, those little policies, his work policy. So we don't think we have money, and they had a house. All of that ended up in probate court. It could have been avoided by, a simple meeting with an attorney. So I do that. Now I do also help people who are elderly, people who are starting to show signs of dementia. So I do a lot of Alzheimer's specific planning. I do have some books on Alzheimer's. I will send them to people for free. If you call and say, I want your book, I'll call and find out which one. I have one for the caregiver. I have one for somebody who's early diagnosed with dementia. And I have one who's just somebody who wants to know a little bit more about dementia. So I have 3 books all about dementia because it's really important for people to understand if you don't die but live with dementia, your will, it only helps you when you're dead.
Yeah. Hold on just 2 seconds. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Sure.
Yeah. On these wills. Okay. So wills are, like you said, there are a lot of people out there doing these cookie cutter wills. Even a will sometimes needs to be a little more elaborate as to what they're bequeathing. Isn't that true?
Well, yeah. Well, if you do a cookie cutter will, I can tell you what the cookie cutter will says. When I die, it all goes to my husband or my wife and to my kids equally. Okay. Well, that's great. Sort of. But, what if you have a kid who is a drug addict? Well, I have a friend who's recovered after they almost killed themselves with the inheritance they got way too young. They were doing drugs at the time, experimenting. They got money and it all went to high living and addiction. So, do you really want that? You probably don't. So, those are things that we have to think about with wills. We also have to think about, so that's, so then we probably didn't want the cookie cutter. One of the early probates I did, the woman had done a cookie cutter will and somebody told her to name her oldest kid as executor. Her oldest kid was in jail, for, felony drug possession. So, he wasn't getting out anytime soon. And so he was in charge. and he tried to do it all from prison and drove his siblings crazy. I mean, you think of these silly things that the cookie cutters do, but the cookie cutter trust says, name your oldest child as executor. Well, most oldest kids are the most responsible. That's what, we hear on all the articles we read, but not every oldest child is that child.
Right.
So, the cookie cutter doesn't necessarily work. And those cookie cutters, the wills, most of them are going to go through probate. It's not horrible. It's a process. Occasionally it's a good process and we use it on purpose, but for the most part, the expense is not what the family was expecting, and it takes on average 18 months to get through probate. They try and get us through in a year, but it still seems to take 18 months. I don't know why. It just does.
Well, it's the processing, and the probate specialists, they have to write recommendations and they have to do investigations, and all of that is also there, right?
Yeah, you have a probate referee who has to value all your property. When you have statutory times, you have to wait for creditors and probate. Now, when you're alive, I know you mentioned, conservatorship, and that you end up having the courts involved when somebody is alive. So one of the reasons why I do a lot about Alzheimer's and dementia is I'm trying to encourage families to realize that when you're alive, you need a plan. You need a living trust, a trust that actually talks about, what happens if I get dementia. I'm really encouraging people when they're early diagnosed to consider the thought of maybe having a co-trustee already in place on all their assets so that their money is taken care of, so they can teach the person how they've managed their money. Sometimes I will call that person a backup trustee or a junior trustee, because their job is to be your backup person. You're still in charge. Legally, you have equal authority. The goal is, when you have that early diagnosis, to let your loved one be, your parent be in charge for as long as possible, while you learn what they're doing and help them manage.
Right. Now, like in this case, for example, she was married to a very wealthy gentleman, and they did do an extensive trust and health directive, and I don't know if you are familiar with Thomas Caswell. He wrote that for them together.
Okay, yeah.
And it was a great document, and it worked fine. But after her husband passed on, my mother, she only had a 18-month education. Okay.
Okay.
She was totally unfamiliar with all of these documents, and it was very frustrating for her because she could read to some degree, but not any basic language she could read. Anything 10 letter words, forget it. She didn't understand them. She didn't know what they meant. She's a very commonsensical person, so she got an idea of what they might mean. But it created a lot of problems for her because she was easily shifted from one person to another. When I suddenly found that she had this dementia, the HIPAA laws do not allow the doctors to let you know that, hey, you coming down the pike here, we're going to have a problem. Your mother is not well. I mean, they would have simply said that to me, then I would have been here doing, as you just said, managing and taking care of and knowing, what is important to her, because really when you're in this assignment, you're acting as if it was them in their place. And and I had no inkling of this, and then come to find out, once the conservatorship was filed by my younger sister, we have two different families. The younger girls, they're totally separate from me. We grew up at a different time. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I lived far away. So I didn't have that nice touchy-feely family relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is that they filed this document, and they really didn't understand that moving document would put my mother in a situation where the court could make a decision as to where she is. Now,
'Cause,
the bottom line is that they filed this document, and they really didn't understand that moving document would put my mother in a situation where the court could make a decision as to where she is. Now, Okay.
Yeah.
And it's sad because my mother is a very healthy person, physically healthy. It's the dementia. She had a stroke um, in 2004, and that from there it continued. And I was so far away, I had no idea she was continuing to have many strokes because I wasn't here
Yeah.
to go to the doctor with her. And
Right.
no one was revealing the information to me. Okay, so that's really, it saddens me because I could have done more had I known. But the good thing with this pandemic virus deal is that the HIPAA laws have now been loosened up. So hopefully it puts it in a situation where the closer family members can at least be advised by the doctor when something like this, of this severity, is going to impact the family or that individual's life, that they can get somebody on board ahead of time and not leave.
Well, yeah, but the HIPAA laws being loosened up, it's temporary. HIPAA is one of those laws that I think is it ended up was supposed to help us keep our health information private, which we want.
Mhm.
However, it's been more harmful. You have a loved one, your kid on their 18th birthday, they get in an auto accident. They just turned 18. Because of HIPAA, their mommy can't know that they're in the hospital. I mean, that's ridiculous, but that's what the law says.
Mhm.
So unless you had them sign on their birthday that advanced healthcare directive, so that I mean, and that's a reason why I'm on a personal crusade, really, to tell people let's talk about when we do our estate planning. What happens when we live? Um, if when I meet with people, if I can see that somebody's struggling with language barriers, maybe there's some symptoms that they've had a stroke at some point, or sometimes I'll say maybe you've had a very mild stroke like my husband. I actually have put in early a co-trustee so that if I figure if I die and
Mhm.
my husband's one left behind, he's going to fall apart because that's who he is. He loves me a lot and he's going to be falling apart. So to have somebody who could help him with the finances right away would be a blessing for him. He could still be in charge, but we would have that backup person.
Mhm.
So yes, we don't even have it done because my son hasn't signed on all of our, as co-trustee on all of our trust assets, but it's in progress.
Okay, let me ask
Okay.
you a question right there because uh, you say a co-trustee. See, I didn't even know we could do that. That would have been really a good thing for our situation had, had she known or understood that. Um, but in like, for example, in your situation, if as a co-trustee, do you have almost equal rights as the trustee? Say,
Yeah, you do, and that is the downside of doing it now. But in the right hands, and most people don't ever think about the co-trustees. In fact, I wouldn't have thought about doing this if my mother-in-law hadn't had dementia and then become paranoid. And so when my father-in-law passed away, she no longer was, before dementia hit, she was she ran an insurance agent as secretary. She was very bright woman,
mhm,
but dementia takes that away from everybody. So the dementia made her afraid of everybody and everything, because when your mind has forgets things, you think people are stealing when they're not. It's not that they mean to, it's how their brain works. I lost my purse and I know I had $100 in it. Now my purse is gone and there's no money. Well, your kids might have hidden it from you so it wasn't stolen, but in
mhm.
your mind they stole it. It's how our mind works. So I so if they had done that, we wouldn't have ended up having to go to that same conservatorship court for her, because she was insisting on being in charge because she was sure we were stealing from her. So we had to go to court. I really am, I'm really talking to every family about, what can we do now? You're alive. How can we avoid court if you end up with dementia? How do we take care of you? How do we avoid this falling apart? If you have a spouse you're leaving behind and they have dementia, or maybe like your mother, they're not, they've never handled the money. And I had one of my clients, it was sad. His wife died. He had made a lot of money, high-powered engineer. He never written a check in his life, never bought groceries in his life. He never done anything like that in his life. When his wife passed away, his granddaughter calls me because grandpa doesn't even know how to write a check. And what do we do? Things hadn't been paid. And it was like, so it can be an intelligent, successful man who's never written a check, or a woman who's not been educated but is brilliant without an education who needs help. It's not a basis of anything, but maybe thinking about, and most attorneys don't think about the co-trustee because they didn't live, they didn't sit and watch everything in a traditional trust fall apart. The cookie cutter trust fell apart. It would have been fine had they just both died like everybody thinks you're gonna, your husband's gonna die, then you're gonna die, and it's all gonna just go, everybody thinks it goes easy, but real life is not that way.
No, it's not. Not at all.
I wish it were, but it were not, it just doesn't work the way. So yeah, so I do a lot of, reminding people we need to focus on both. We need to make sure, that healthcare directive, I've actually on my website, I have a free advanced healthcare directive. Please go to my website. It's, I forget where you find it. I think it's under healthcare directive with dashes on it. Call me, I'll send it to you. Free of charge. Why? Because I want you to have that document. That way, we can fax it to the facility. Here, this is who I want in charge. It enables your husband, your wife, your daughter, your mother to talk about you. You need it on your 18th birthday.
Right. It's very
like
important.
I said, I was ridiculous making them do it.
Especially with what's going on. It's very, very important to go and do that, because that's the first thing they ask. I mean, at the hospital, they ask now if you have someone that can answer for you, because if they're going to put you into one of those on the ventilator, you won't be able to talk.
Yeah, my article on my blog post I just wrote about advanced healthcare opinions. I said I have a strong opinion. If I get sick enough with COVID to need a ventilator, no thank you. I know that my chances of surviving are 20%. I personally would only want it for 14 days, because at 14 days it becomes a trach, and I don't want that. So I have a very strong opinion. I say no thank you at all. But at most, I don't want it. Now, you may have a different opinion. You may want everything done.
Mm-hmm.
Please let your family know. Like I said, I'm giving the document away. If you go to my website, it's there. I just wrote an article about advanced healthcare directives. Please get that document. I've set it up so all you need is 2 witnesses. So you can get, I think 6 feet apart, you can get 2 witnesses. If you sign it and it's not witnessed, it's better than not having one. Send it in not witnessed. You can have a notary. I know that the UPS stores have notaries and they are open.
Mm-hmm.
So I've set it up to make it as easy as possible for you to fill it out.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, I found that is a very important document with my husband when he passed away. I mean, I had to be his mouthpiece, because first of all, I think it's great that you're coaching people, because people don't realize some of these procedures and what it means. Like when you said trachea, well, that's cutting into your throat.
Right.
And they're putting pipes down there so that you can continue to survive. And it's really, oh, no, it's not a good thing to watch.
No, and it may not be what you want. You may not want CPR. If you're 18-year-old, you probably do. If you're 70 years old, you probably don't want CPR, because it's going to break your wrist, and it's not really going to. It's not like on TV. From what I've been told, it's painful, and it doesn't typically give you much more life. So you may not want CPR, but if you don't write it down, if you don't understand, you will get these things. So yeah, I am a coach to my clients, and I tell people I'm giving away the free healthcare directive. I won't ever charge you for a document. I charge you for my advice. So I have had clients who've actually paid me to advocate for the family with the healthcare system when they've said no, or they want everything, or they said yes.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client who he had been fighting a disease for a long time. He wanted the trach. The doctors didn't want it, and I fought. I was in LA. He was an Orthodox Jew. He wanted every method. I was the only non-Jewish person in the whole room. I thought it was kind of funny. I went, how did they end up getting the one non-Jewish lawyer? But I think it's because I'm pretty passionate about making sure that people get what they want done,
Mhm.
whatever it is, whether you want to live forever or you don't want to live forever.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a personal choice. That's what it comes down to. That, like I said, you're advocating for that person when they can't talk, how they would want to live their life realistically. I mean, I had to do that for my husband. Some of the choices he made, he asked me my opinion, and I said, well, this is my opinion. I wouldn't do this and this, but it's your life, so you need to make those choices, and I'll help you write it out in any fashion that you would want, and then we can go from there. So that way you have some direction, because it is, like you said, it's letting people know who have never met you understand what you have chosen to do.
Yeah. So, and we talk a lot about, we need to get our financial things in order. Those are your wills, your trusts, and there are lots of different kinds of trusts. And that's what, why we don't, plain vanilla trust is even, more dangerous. They're all dangerous because you might need something not plain vanilla, but the simplest document in my whole estate planning portfolio is probably that healthcare directive. And often it is the one I spend the most time with, and often end up getting paid the most for, because I will become that advocate for my clients. Now, when I give the document away for free, I'm not doing that advocacy. I'm just making sure people get that document, because right now you need that document. Right now, I'm telling people, instead of going online and getting a cookie cutter will or trust, get out your pen, get out your paper, say, when I die, this is what I want to have happen. If you have minor children, this is who I want to be the guardian of my minor children if I die, and write it out in your own handwriting, what you want. Have your spouse do the same thing, and write it in simple English. When I die, this is what I want to happen. You sign it and date it. It actually is perfectly valid in court,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get the job done. Now that's going to go to probate, but if that's all you can do right now, handwrite it yourself, because if you're trying to fill out a form, you're going to fill it out wrong. If you do
Right.
it out of your head, you're going to say, okay, don't use the word executor. Okay, we know that that's the person who's in charge in court. Say, when I die, the person I want to be in charge of my money is
Mm-hmm.
X. The person I want to be the guardian of my children is Y. They could be different people. You could have the brother who's a good accountant and he's lovely with money, but he's not such a friendly uncle with kids. Your sister who, can't keep two dimes in her pocket, you might want to have take care of your kids. You don't have to have the same person, but, write it down in these times. But when it comes to the estate planning, get it done. Yes, I know the attorneys were not cheap. I don't claim to even be the cheapest attorney in town. I say I know. I'm state bar certified in trust, probate, and estate planning as a certified specialist, and I'm nationally certified as an elder law attorney. There are, at last count, 34 certified elder law attorneys by the National Elder Law Foundation in this entire state of California.
Mm-hmm.
So with those certifications, I think I'm one of the top 30 attorneys in the entire state. And, I spend a lot of time making sure that I keep up to date with all the crazy laws.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to. But my expertise is really in advising you and making sure that you get what you want. And realistically, I focus less on what happens when you die than what happens when you don't die, because that's really my passion. Because I don't want families to go through what we had to go through, what you've had to go through. Those conservatorships,
Mm-hmm.
they're nasty, they're expensive. The court ends up getting control where they shouldn't. And sometimes things go sideways because people will ask me when I go to court, what's the judge, we've got a battle, what's the judge going to say? I don't know what the judge is going to say. If I knew, we wouldn't be here.
That's right. And those
We
very well,
really wouldn't be here.
yeah, they're very well practiced, and they have their opinions, and they base that. I work with them, and they look at the situation, and if they see something they've seen before, they know what the outcome's going to be. I mean, we're people. I hate to say it, but certain people have certain behavior habits. Correct? I mean,
Yes, they do. And you don't want to have your family in court because most judges are lovely people, but they're humans and
yes,
they make mistakes, and sometimes they make wrong decisions. They don't mean to. They're not trying to hurt your family, but sometimes you're asking them to figure out who is the one who's stealing, who's not stealing, what's really going on in a situation. They don't know everything. They can't possibly know anything. They're doing the best they can, but sometimes their decisions have consequences they don't intend.
right,
We really want to try and avoid the court. So if you want to avoid court when you're alive or when you're dead, you need that living trust. It's done in your life is why it's called living. Most people don't, most attorneys, when they do a living trust, frankly, don't even think about what happens if you don't die. They've not been there. I didn't really think about it until I'm sitting there with my brother and sister-in-law and my husband looking at a perfectly well written trust and going, huh. It has mom in charge when dad who's actually in the hospital with a broken hip and unable to speak because that's what anesthesia did. She's in charge and she can't remember he's in the hospital, and she won't admit it because she's using, I'll say it, the F word. You know what the F word is? It's I'm fine. So she's using that F word, the fine word, I'm fine, when they're not fine. They have dementia, but
right.
people with dementia use that F word a lot, the fine word.
Mm-hmm.
And
Me,
everybody thinks I'm funny. I said the F word in my office is fine. It's not that other F word that you can't use on the radio. It's fine, which we can use, but it becomes, you're not fine. But they think they're fine, and because you're a grown up, you can take that fine away. Well, let's try everything we can to avoid that. Let's get people talking. I sometimes have families like yours, they step families and they haven't talked to each other, and we're now trying to take care of somebody's mom and dad, and different people are there. And I say, okay, we're going to have this big family meeting, and we're going to, I'm going to charge you a little bit more, and we're going to spend a couple hours, and we're all going to yell at each other, and we're all going to talk to each other, and we're going to figure out a plan, because we all got to get on the page here.
right,
And you know what? At the end, we do get on the page for the most part, because most people are not bad people. But you know what? They don't know each other, and they've heard stories that aren't true, and who knows what they've heard. But you know what? We get them together, and we get on the same page, and we figure out, okay, you don't trust each other. How can we work together so we can manage now the care of somebody with dementia with people who don't know each other well?
mm-hmm.
They don't trust each other. How can we get you guys to work together?
So one of the things that I think is critical that people understand, these trusts really, really work, and they help um, uh, the crossover of properties and dollars, and limit the exposure as far as taxation. Um,
Right.
that helps quite a bit in a lot of these cases. So I think it's imperative people understand that this is a moving document. As you say, it's living.
Right. It has to live. It's a moving document. We're not as worried about estate taxes as we used to be, because the estate tax exemptions are really high. But there are other taxes you have to worry about. Capital gains taxes, the Prop 13, Prop 53. I won't go into detail, but there's lots of ways you can mess it up, and they caught on to the tricks people were using. So now we can't do things we used to be able to do. So you need to, if you want your kids to get your property, or one child to be able to buy the house from the other children, we need to make sure we do that correctly, or else the assessors, you're going to lose that nice Prop 13 tax you got. They want their money. So there's lots of tax considerations, that you need, and people need to do this planning in times like this. People they are dying, and we need to have a plan. And don't be like I've got somebody, they were hoping to avoid probate, but their loved one is on hospice, and I think we may have waited too long. You actually have to be able to still talk to me for me to be able to do your plan. And, there's a place at which I can't, I just can't.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, like with my mother, they took her and then they put her in a place where they could watch her for a while. And then they understood, she really can't think straight at all from one day to another. And then they made their decision from that information. But you're right. I think that we need to reiterate, wills, get that health directive off of Martha Jo's website, give her a call at, what is your number again?
It's 559-473-1233, and there's somebody to answer. They actually answer 24/7. I don't answer 24/7, but I'll call you back. You can call me. You can go on my website. I do have that resource available free. And if you can't find it, just let me know.
And it's called
Lawmom.com.
Okay,
Yeah,
that should be
so,
pretty easy to remember, I hope. But
yeah.
out there in Central California, to be within the top 30, or there's only 30 and you're one of the top attorneys, that's a blessing in itself, because this is really difficult law, especially if you have a lot of acreage and a lot of children. Like you said, there are some people just are naturally combatant and you can't.
Yeah, and really don't try. People, they do the dumbest things, and my biggest warning to people is, please do not give your house away because you think you're going to avoid taxes, IRS, or anybody, because you won't do that. What'll end up happening is you'll end up losing your house because you gave it to your kids, and now they can kick you out of your house, and there's nothing you can do. So please, please. Don't do it for Medi-Cal. Don't do it for anybody. You do not have to give your house away for anything. I can take care of it. I charge for my work, but I help a lot of people of, here's what we can, what can we do? How can I do self-help? What can we do to get you where you need to be? And because, I have lots of great resources out there, and
it's really worth investment to pay someone like yourself, even if it's $5,000-7,000. You can end up, like you said, losing your home, and if it's a paid-for home, it may be worth $300,000. So what was the investment? $7,000. That's a kick in the bucket. So really, people need to evaluate this situation, and then the precision of the doctors and those chief medical people in there. They'll look at the information at a glance, and if it doesn't say specifics right away, they'll just go forward with what they know will work.
Yeah, they do. And with dementia, the hardest part is, we want our doctors to tell us, and sometimes, even they struggle with diagnosing, dementia, because especially in the earlier stages, it's not as obvious as people think it is. And by the time it's really obvious, often, somebody's already been subjected to elder abuse, and or they've lost their money, or, and it's just too late.
A mess.
It's a mess. And so we want to just try and do that. And I know even in times like this, we're not seeing our neighbors, but I'm encouraging everybody, if you know that you have an elderly neighbor, please, you can talk to people through the screen. Please, check in on them. Please be still checking in on our neighbors. If if you're making extra food, bring them a cooked meal. Leave it on their porch step. Let's keep in mind that isolation is the worst thing for elderly people. I wish that we could be in and seeing our loved ones in the facilities, and I know that they're not able to get the calls in and the video chats like people would like, because they're overworked and underpaid and understaffed in most every facility, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So
we have this virus that has opened the door to the conversation, because I certainly don't want to go to the home and not people not know me or understand me, or I've been independent all my life, and I'm sure you've been that way as well. So we need to really get on and call Martha Jo, you need a goodwill, you need a good living trust, you need the health directive, especially if you have special needs children, or like I had a friend in Anaheim Hills, her son went in for a tonsillectomy and they did it wrong and it ended up giving him brain damage. So,
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
yeah, and those things happen, and if you have those special needs kids,
mhm.
we need to plan for them. We need special trust for them. They may, there are special kinds of conservatorships just for them, that are available, and up here there are not all the free resources, but
You can
uh,
help with the fiduciaries, right, as well?
yeah, if somebody's a professional fiduciary, I can help people set them up. There are private professional fiduciaries.
Mhm.
Um, they're, the licensed and bonded. I help them and help families set up with those people. Some of the big banks, have, if you have enough money to leave behind,
Mhm.
if you have these kids, let's talk about how can we plan for them, because I do actually think outside the box sometimes, and have been doing some specific planning for that special needs, child to be adult child. I was going to be a special ed teacher, but I ended up being a lawyer instead. So I guess that they still will always have a special place in my heart.
Better yet, because you understand them even more. I mean, that's wonderful. But we have to go now before they shut this off.
Yeah, well, a great meeting you, Edna, and I hope to be able to help you soon. Anytime you need anything, people,
Talk.
people can always call me. I'll always give them I give them a few free minutes over the phone. So
Super. I appreciate your time, and thank God you're not very far away. And like she says, you can talk to her like we're talking now, Zoom call or Skype. She probably has Skype as well.
I
Uh,
do.
yeah, it sounds like you're pretty well trained for people that are older that can't get around as well as we used to.
Yeah, and I'm doing the phone, and I understand sometimes, our aging parents, they can't hear, they can't, and so, we'll make it work for them. We'll make it work for you and them. And maybe that you're on the phone and you're sitting next to them, and we're having a conversation that takes longer. We in these times when we can't get together, we're having to make do, and but we'll get through it. However, we have to make, whatever we have to make do. I've been joking a little bit about my making do. So,
All right, so folks, give her a call, and we really appreciate your time. And check out her website and get that free health directive, especially right now. We need it if there's something going on in your family and you're not quite sure what it might be. As she suggested, sit down and just write it out step by step. And then even that could be given to Martha Jo later on, and she could develop a will from that information for you as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So
So,
thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and thank you for watching Yo Soy Neighborhoods Fresno, everyone. Tune in, and we'll be back next. Oh, tomorrow's Friday. We have one coming up for tomorrow as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.